This is the 19th season of Bass Talk Live. BTL is presented by Bass Cat Boats, Strike King Lures, Aftco, Pro Guide Batteries, X-Zone Lures, Shoreline Boat and RV Repair, Spro, Gamakatsu, Big Bite Baits, The Bass Tank, Denali Rods, Beatdown Outdoors, and Sunline.
BTL coming at you.
Good morning and welcome to another exciting edition of BTL Bass Talk Live, where we are going to talk about bass fishing. Yes, live from Shawnee, Oklahoma, back in studio after a very eventful Bassmaster Open on Wheeler Lake, middle of the pack finish there. We will get a little bit more into that later with how we're going to do the breakdown and what went on during that event. It is the middle of May, which means that pretty much every circuit in every league has events, and it also means, and it seems like the seasons just keep getting shorter and shorter and shorter, with more percentage of the season packed into March, April, May, and June. We're basically halfway through the Elite Series season, halfway through the MLF season, and I think we've only had Hallman on like 2 or 3 times this year during his return to the Bassmaster Elite Series. But we got him today. He's got no Elite Series. He's not on the water filming. He's in the studio. And there he is. What's up, Mr. Hallman? Thanks for jumping on BTL from your home.
What's up, dude? What's up?
Oh, not much. Do you keep track of what the heck's going on in the fishing world when you're out and about and on tour on the Elite Series? Like, do you follow all the other tournaments that are going on, or do you just like kind of live in a little bubble? I know guys do it differently.
I think most of us are guilty of maybe the week that we're like, if we're during in the middle of events, I think we're pretty hooked up with whatever we're doing, dude. There's not time for anything else. That was even in the Opens, and everywhere I've ever fished has been like that.
I agree.
But when I get home, though, yeah, definitely. Much more so recently than in the past. But this past week there was a lot going on. I mean, you guys were going on at the Opens last week, and then Todd had Castledine going on at Rayburn, and then all of the MLS stuff, which was pretty good stuff. Anytime they're on Gunnersville, you know, you want to watch and pay attention to that.
It is. Let's start with the Rayburn tournament that went down, which is a Toyota Series event. And like I said, there's a ton of Toyota Series. I know I was at Wheeler when Justin Lucas won his first Toyota Series event of his career. I didn't realize that was his first win there at Lake Eufaula in Alabama. Very stingy there, so congratulations to Justin Lucas. But what Alec Morrison did at Rayburn in the Toyota Series, so quite frankly, has never been done before. Bradley, never been done before. The largest margin of victory in Toyota Series history, and I think the last one went back like 15 years or something, when it was probably the Rayovacs or the Strens. What has it been? It's been the Rayovac or the Strens, or Rayovac, Stren, Toyota, or Rayovac, Stren. It's been a bunch of different names.
It was Stren before Rayovac. It was
Stren.
Yeah. It was Everstart before that.
Everstart.
Everstart. Yep. That's what I remember it being first. Everstart, and then Stren for a short time, and then Rayovac, and then Costa for a long time.
And then Costa, and now Toyota Series.
Yeah.
So it's been through some names, but this kid comes from New York to Rayburn. That would have to be intimidating, would it not, Bradley?
Very much so. Yeah, I'm actually pulling his stuff up right now. Dude's only fished 19 tournaments, but he's got 8 top 10s.
I do believe that most of those are BFLs, and then I think he fished some as a co-angler too. If you look at his stats, because it doesn't say co-angler, but you can just tell by how much he won. I think he's got like a 3rd place in one, but it was only $5,000. So I think that would lead me to believe that it was as a co-angler.
Yeah, his largest, I see the largest money earnings up to till the 70,000 that he won this weekend was $5,000. So yeah, probably so.
He goes out on Rayburn, 27-9 on a stingy Rayburn, 27-9, 29-9 and has like a 22-pound lead
Mhm.
over everyone all the Rayburn guys fish this event too.
Yeah.
I mean, you can look at the top
yeah.
10
Yeah.
that he pull up here. I mean, you got Cody Huff in there, Jeff Reynolds, Chris Wilson, Keith Combs, Matt Reed. I mean, those are just some of the guys that are in the top 10. Castledine, I think he finished 26th in the event. But he didn't even have to go out to the dock. He didn't have to sit at the dock and order pizza like Timmy Horton. He could have just gone to the pizza joint and sat out on the final day.
Yeah. Yeah. Dude, 29, 27, and then backing that up with 29 at Rayburn right now is freaking strong.
Yeah. And did the majority of his damage on a D shot, on the old drop shot. And then was also throwing a free rig a little bit, which I've talked about on the show before. I think the free rig is something that may need to become part of the arsenal now. I mean, it's consistently in the top 10.
He was bombing the free rig, huh?
Yeah, free rig on a football head, I think, like a football head free rig. So
Really?
Probably a little bit mixture between like a Texas rig and a wobble head. But the majority of the damage was done on the drop shot. Went out 16-3 on the final day, 73.05. Got the $35K Phoenix bonus money and $70,000 for his efforts on Sam Rayburn. So very impressive Toyota series. Also very impressive, Brad, Jacob Wheeler, 6th. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 BPT wins, gets the job done on Guntersville, and he did it in a unique way. He practiced.
I watched quite
some
a bit
of
of that. Yeah, I watched quite a bit of it. Yeah.
What were your impressions?
He spends a lot of time practicing on event days, that he knows that he's going to make a cut and move. Dude spends a lot of time looking, a lot of time.
I'm glad you mentioned that because we did not have a pre-tournament. God, that's how deep we are in the tournament season. A pre-show meeting. This is a quote from the MLF website. Wheeler is known for his tournament strategy, which was in full force this week, capitalizing on a solid morning bite during the 2 days of the qualifying rounds. Because remember now, they're 5-fish limit. They have the qualifying rounds, and then the final 2 rounds, they zero. And then the final 2 rounds are combined. So basically 10 fish, 10 fish. But you still, if you're in the qualifying rounds, that, even if you catch 150 pounds in 10 fish, an average of 15 pounds, whatever, it doesn't matter. It's zeros. Should have mentioned that before I started the quote. But here we are. Capitalizing on a solid morning bite during the 2 days of the qualifying rounds, he had plenty of time to look for new areas during the tournament. I fished about a period and a quarter of the next period each of the first 2 days. Then I went looking, he said. I spent my time graphing and also rechecking areas. Some of the best areas only had a couple of fish, and when I returned, there was a whole school there. Other places only had spotted bass on them, but I knew bigger largemouth would be coming. He also carefully chose which areas to milk all they were worth for and save some for later. The whole key was finding new groups, he said. So he was fishing ahead of it. So if you take a period and then a quarter of the next period, so that gives him that gave him roughly 2.5, 5, 7. That gave him an entire additional day of practice to find offshore groups of fish during the tournament that he then caught in the last 2 rounds. He got an extra day of practice because of his strategy, Brad.
Yeah, and it's amazing how, in theory, that sounds easy. Like everybody's like, yeah, let's go do that. But man, that's not so easy to execute. And then to even execute it and find, a day and a half is still, Guntersville's a big place.
Yeah.
And he just keeps rolling up on great schools. But I'll say this, Van Dam was a lot the same way in the early 2000s. And watching Wheeler reminds me of watching Kevin on those TVA impoundments at that time frame. And as a competitor, when you're competing against them, it's like, well, he's finding the motherlode school every time he goes. How does he keep jumping on the best school of the lake? After years of watching it, man, they're jumping on good schools. It's not that, but they may not be the greatest schools. 29-pound bag, you're like, that's the best school in the lake. And I don't think that there's just numerous schools that you can catch 26, 27 pounds on Guntersville right now. I do think there's a bunch of schools you could catch 21, 22.
And we saw that the weights were insane for this.
Right. But what Wheeler's got going right now is the same thing Van Dam had going, which is he believes he's going to catch every darn fish that lives there. And he truly believes it. And it's a confidence thing. And they actually make good spots great with what they're doing and the knowledge that they have. They've got a little leg up. I didn't get a watch because the camera won't stay hooked up on how long they're sitting on spots. But I know from the past, some of the guys that have had really good, when you've got multiple schools, a lot of times it's a big bait first you cast. And the reason why is they want to trigger the biggest fish in the school, and they will try to catch in the first 2 or 3 casts, 2 or 3 of the biggest fish in the school. And then even if the school's still going, they're not going to sit there and beat it down. They'll move on to the next school, throw a big bait, move on to the next school, big bait. You with me? So then you can rotate back to those schools. They're still there. They're still being and go back with the big bait. And so then you're able to kind of pull bigger fish off of those schools and leave the rest there competing for and attracting other fish.
Now, I believe he also did the majority on a spinning rod and was throwing like
he is. I know
a 4-inch swim bait that he's helped design. It's like a prototype swim bait. Now, I don't know. He might have gone there and thrown big stuff at first, but the majority of his damage in the fish that I saw him catch, also spinning rod stuff. And there were a ton of guys that were throwing spinning rod. Like, dude, spinning rods, big fish in May on these TVA fisheries. I mean, and these East Texas fisheries. I don't think we saw that 5 years ago. I know we didn't see that 5 years ago.
We're seeing it more and more and more and more. We're seeing it nationwide. I'm noticing it in the tournaments that I'm competing against in the Elite Series. A lot more spinning rods involved in everything, and it's just pressure national wise, on our fish. Fishing's changing.
Is that forward-facing sonar pressure, Brad? 100%. Like, is that a big part of that? Do you think why we're seeing more spinning rods offshore?
It's the biggest part of it. Yeah. It's also a lot more boats on the water, dude. I mean, there's a lot of boats on the water. I mean, Guntersville is to explain how crowded it is out there is no one will understand unless they go there and witness it themselves. I mean, dude, right now it's Monday morning, and I guarantee you that it's Monday morning. It's 8:43 right now at Guntersville, and I bet you that if we went down there to North End, right in the middle of what's the name of that place, Sky Saudi or Saudi Daisy, or you pull in there to that ramp right now, the public boat ramp, and I bet you we'd be parking in the street because it's already 8:45. Parking lot's going to be full of trucks and trailers, guys out fishing. You're going to park in the street if we put in there right now.
Yeah, I know that the Toyota on Rayburn had a 300 boat high school tournament that was on Saturday, which was a final day. All those boats were on the water, plus the 180, whatever that. So you had 500 boats. I know at Wheeler for the Open, their first day of practice, we had 200 some boats on the water for the Open. There was a 290 boat high school tournament, another 80 boat local tournament. I mean, you're talking 500, 600, 700 boats on the water, and everybody kind of has the same idea of where and how it's going to go down. Makes for some interesting dynamics.
So back to the cricket, you were talking about the 4-inch swim bait that he's coming out with. Obviously, I watched enough footage that at one point he was actually telling the camera guys, hey, I brought that fish over on this side of the boat. It was the camera boat side of the boat for your benefit. But that bait does not go on the internet. So did you see the bait?
I'm trying to pull it up and see if I can get it. I don't see any pictures of the bait right now. It'd be interesting to see.
I think he's wanting to hold it to eye cast is what he was saying.
Yeah. Wheeler mixed it up with 4 different jig head sizes. The bait has a nice shad profile, but it's not just a fluke style bait. It has more depth to it. He said it's a phenomenal trailer for the back of a vibrating jig, having one bait that does 2 things well. The bait measures 4¼ inches. And he used green shad and natural shad. This is where you were talking about. He says it's a soft plastic shad profile, fish on a VMC hybrid, swim bait jig head. It's a whole new line of soft plastics that were released at ICAST. The key to the bait is the unique action. I wanted something different. I've spent countless hours in my pool. So he Takahiro'd it. I spent countless hours in my pool playing with different jig heads and modifying it. I think he actually caught him on this thing, and it's not just just one of those deals where you're trying to pump a bait.
No, he definitely was hiding it from the camera. Well, it's definitely explaining to them. He wasn't hiding it from them. He definitely explained to them that he didn't want it released, and they obviously did not. So kudos to them. you know,
Yeah.
and that's a great way to market a bait, because when it comes out at ICAST, it'll roll.
A couple more things from that Guntersville event. Guy who's on a roll. Well, he's leading the Angler of the Year after 4 events. I did not realize he'd been having this good of a season. It was kind of like Ron Nelson on the pro circuit until you start looking at the actual numbers. Ott Defoe this year, he's already got a 42-point lead. He has regular season finishes on the BPT of 10th, 2nd, 7th, and 3rd, and then he finished 10th at Redcrest. He's fished a total of 5 events this year. He's finished 2nd, 3rd, 7th, 10th, and 10th.
I watched Odd on day 1 of their final round, and he sit on one hole. It was pretty impressive because he only had 4 fish in the box where everybody else had a limit for quite a while. And he sat on one spot all day long, knowing that big ones were there. And I mean, when he finally got his 5th bite late in the afternoon, you know, he had like 15 pounds in the box with just 4. And I mean, he catches a freaking big one, you know, over 5-pounder. And man, it jumped his bag right up to where he needed to make the cut. And it was pretty cool.
I like the fact that they've gone to the 5 fish for the 2 days. They zero the weights and then they do the 5 more. I think you would have seen it go down a lot differently on Guntersville had it still been the every fish counts, and it wouldn't have been nearly as intriguing, in my opinion. I mean, you had guys that were fishing for big ones.
Yeah. Primarily everyone was offshore except for Dudley. Dudley really made the most out of the bank. It was pretty cool to watch that too.
Crazy deal that I'd never seen there. Boyd Duckett got a penalty. Did you hear about this one, Brad?
I saw something about it on Instagram, about a 10-minute penalty, but that's all it was, and I didn't know what it was for or anything.
I did not realize this. Previous to this year, you could go on the water during the 30-day off limits as long as you weren't trying to find or target bass. So, like, let's say there was one on Grand and you were fishing it. You could go out on Grand and say crappie fish. You didn't have to. There wasn't an off limits. It was finding or targeting bass. Well, he forgot that it changed this year, I guess, to where it was a 30-day off limits. Went out, caught some Guntersville crappie, which there's some crappie in Guntersville. But 10 minutes out of the first round, he had to sit out. So I thought that was an interesting penalty there.
Yeah, I think I'd be wanting a little more penalty than that, but I don't know how the rules are set up. But yeah.
I do need to mention before we move on to other things, your boy Todd Castledine is insane in East Texas, and he's still doing it old school. He's not out there with a spinning rod. He hasn't adopted this new offshore live scope, chase fish around type thing. He's getting up in the mud. He's doing his thing. He's power fishing. He just won his 5th Toyota Series Angler of the Year for that division. His 5th, dude. 5th.
It's incredible. I haven't got to talk to him yet either. But yeah, it's unbelievable. Is that the most of anybody in the country ever?
Yes. That is a record for Toyota Series Angler of the Years. Toyota Series are freaking hard, man.
Yeah.
Because you get all the sticks, regional sticks that fish that, because he wins $70,000 if you front. But I can't remember who I was talking to. I was talking to someone on the way back. We were talking about Todd Castledine's 5th Angler of the Year. And this individual asked a very interesting question that got me thinking during my miles on the road. And that is, do you think Todd will ever win again on those lakes? Or is the way he fishes now really hard to win because of what you see guys like Alec going out there and doing with the live scope and the brush piles and all of the new technology? Will you see those events won on the bank ever again and dominated like they used to be? Or is it going to become tougher and tougher and tougher for the old school, shallow and traditional guys to win these events? I mean, a dude from New York who'd never been there before is like in his early 20s, just won by 24 pounds.
Yeah, but you're talking about early summer patterns. They're way done spawning at Rayburn, and so you're even probably past the true post spawn. You're really more into an early summer pattern. You get it back in April, March. Yeah, you can still see it. You can still see it one shallow power fishing, 100%.
But a lot harder. Do you think it's a lot harder for him?
It depends on the fish. It depends on the fishery, dude. I mean, he almost won. He finished 2nd up there at the Arkansas River this year at Dardanelle. I mean,
no, we're talking about like Rayburn.
You're talking about the Texas
Toledo,
stuff.
the stuff that
is Todd Castledine's
backyard.
No, I still think it can be done. I think the time of the
Okay.
year has to coincide, but I know Todd real well. Don't sleep on the live scope either. He knows how to use it.
Really?
Yeah.
Is he being a little sneaky about that?
He hasn't been using it a whole lot in tournaments. I'm not saying that, but he definitely works with it.
All right. We're going to take care of some cool things that came down the pipeline. Then we're going to take a break. Then we're going to get into your season. And I mean, you finished last on lay, Brad. I got people that mentioned, I had literally had an email. I meant to pull it up that was like, we are genuinely concerned about the welfare of Brad Hallman as BTL listeners. And we're wondering if there is anything we could genuinely do to help him.
Yeah.
I was like, I think it's all good, man. It's tournament fishing. But we're going to get into that. But before we do, I want to mention the 15th, the long-awaited release for the Denali Novus Elite, and Novus Pro reels came out. Got to use them for the first time. I think we're going to do a Novus Pro giveaway next week, and that's because we have another giveaway this week. But full disclosure, I was a little nervous, to try brand new reels and see what it is and have to make the switch. Very impressed with these things. Fish them all week at Wheeler. I can say they handle 1 3/4 to 2 pounders with ease because I caught plenty of those size fish this past week on Wheeler. But this week, later on in the week, in honor of Brandon Polinick's back-to-back second place finishes on lay and in this most recent episode on Wheeler, I got a hold of X Zone. I mentioned earlier that the Stealth Invader came out. I think you can see that right there, which is a real cool, unique Goby drop shot net and swim bait style swim bait. We are fixing to open seasons, and the smallmouth season is starting to kick off up north. So later in the week, I have 2 6-packs of the Stealth Invaders, which are really cool. Brandon Polinick designed them and is on that. So we'll have a giveaway for that. Tomorrow on the show, I do want to mention Brian New is on the show. And have not had Brian New on the show in a while. And I did not realize how much of a gearhead, a bait head. Have you ever peeked around Brian New's stuff before, Bradley?
Oh yeah, he's a tinker, big time. At the top
I did not take him as I knew he hung with thrift and stuff, but I didn't understand to the extent of which.
Yeah, they're the same.
I mean, like if he has one, for example, buzzbait, he'll have 35 different types, right? And try it all and test it all. And he's like that with every single bait. You're kind of like, just get it and go.
No, I've got some that I'm more get it and it works and I keep using it. That's what I am. If it works, I don't change.
And then on Wednesday, we're going to have Ben Milliken on the show. If you follow social media, not clickbait, not done for views, we got into a little dust up on day 2 of the Open on Wheeler. And I'll just say it how it is. I think I was right. Ben thinks he was right. We said we were going to bring the reality of fishing the Opens with transparency and talk about how and what it went down. And we went 24 hours without really talking to each other. And then we spoke yesterday and agreed we'll talk about it on Wednesday. So Ben will be on to talk about that on Wednesday. You ever gotten into it on the water, Brad? I've never actually asked you about that.
No, I told you I've never had one confrontation on the lake in my life ever. I'm being for real. I haven't.
I thought you had a video, the confrontation in the creek.
Yeah, that's more of a conversation in the creek, but
yeah, we had a conversation. We honestly did not have a confrontation on the water, but it brings up a lot of interesting questions, a lot of interesting points at this time of the year. A lot of people have to deal with. So I'll be very interested to see how that show goes down. All right. You ready to talk about your season and all things included when we get back, Bradley?
Absolutely.
All right. Back in studio after a full week on the road. It's BTL on a Monday. We'll be back right after this.
The new Puma STS has been redesigned from the ground up. With the angler, design, function, and performance in mind, nothing on this new offering was compromised, and the only thing carried over from the previous version is the name. Based on the Soft Touch series hull that started with the flagship Jaguar, this new model is nimble and performs incredibly well at all speeds with either a 250 or 300 horsepower engine. Featuring a new 96-inch wide body footprint, this hull measures out at 20 foot 7 inches in length. Industry-leading design coupled with tournament-winning performance. The Puma STS from Basscat. Feel the rush.
Everything you need, one legendary brand. Top on all. Strike King.
So I'm a big guy, you know, a lunker, a two sandwich eating kind of man. And on behalf of all of those bigger, I gotta say it once and for all, it's bad enough that the fish look smaller in our hands. The last thing we should have to worry about is getting quality outdoor clothing that fits. AVCO, any fish, any water.
Elite Series Pro Daryl Gleason here. My Pro Guide batteries keep me going on those long tournament days and long practice days. Always plenty of juice, never fail. The best part about Pro Guide batteries, it's the people behind the company. They have over 40 years experience in the battery business, keeping all of us fishermen out on the water longer, catching more fish. Check them out at ProGuideBatteries.com.
What's up, Bass Talk Live fans? Brandon Polnick here. And ever since I won a couple Bassmaster Elite Series events on X-Zone Lures, I've been getting a bunch of questions of what makes them so special and different. And really, the truth is, it's in the details. The little details, things like no cheap fillers in their plastic. That gives you more lifelike action, more realistic and vibrant colors. But don't just take my word for it. Go to www.xzonelures.com and check them out for yourself.
Shoreline Boat and RV, dock rash, storm damage, collision repair, that deep scratch or gouge from trying to access that secret creek. Shoreline Boat and RV can get your prized possession back in mint condition and looking good on the water, fast. All repairs are done in-house, so they're able to get your boat or RV back to brand new, quickly. All Shoreline's work comes with a rock-solid warranty. Find out more at ShorelineBoatandRV.com. Kansas City, Austin, and Tulsa. All right, welcome back, BTL, on a Monday.
That commercial reminds me I need to call up Shoreline. I've got some fiberglass stuff on an RV. I've been putting it off forever. I've got to take care of that.
The Boomer Sooner RV?
Yeah. Got to get that fixed. Shoreline.
What happened?
Oh, I pulled out of a gas pump, turned right, and took out the back left corner panel.
Oh, I bet you were just a joy to be with after that.
Oh, I was wonderful. Cheery. Yeah.
Are you going to be able to tailgate all of Oklahoma's home games this year with the season ending so early?
That's the hope.
Because it's been a minute since you've been able to string a full season of tailgating together, and that's your.
Did only made a couple of games last few years, so yeah, I'm hoping that we've got some time, and hopefully it's worth watching. You know,
are we going to be good this year?
I don't know if we're going to be good, but the good news is we've got the worst schedule in the country. So the easiest.
We do?
Oh, it's terrible.
What is our schedule this year?
Let's not get onto it. Let's move on. They'll be mad about us talking football.
No, they won't. They expect you to talk football. They get mad when they don't talk football with you.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone will want us to talk football once the SEC comes along then, huh?
Mm-hmm.
You're really mad about the OU schedule?
I'm not mad about it. I'm just saying that it's very winnable.
2023 schedule?
Yeah.
Hold on. Arkansas State?
Yeah.
SMU?
Yeah.
Tulsa?
Yeah.
Cincinnati?
Yeah.
Iowa State, Texas, UCF, Kansas, Oak State, West Virginia, BYU, and TCU. Oh, because they're bringing the new teams into the conference.
Correct.
I gotcha. All right. I watched your. See, people are asking questions. Who's OU's quarterback next year? Jason Mitchell wants to know. I think we're starting with number 8, right?
Yeah. Yeah. He will definitely be the quarterback at OU for next year, barring injury.
All right. let's get into Lay Lake. I watched your practice video, and it was very apparent from the practice video that you just were never able to get things rolling during practice. And I mentioned to you, I said, that's a bad feeling when you go into an event knowing you're not on what you need to be on to have a great event. You have to find that during the tournament. Was that kind of an accurate assessment of how you felt going into that event?
That's how I felt for the last 4 or 5 events. Yeah. I don't know which practice video particularly you're talking about. I guess the latest one to
the latest one. Yeah. The Lay Lake one where you're looking, you're fishing all sorts of grass. You're doing Brad Hallman stuff. It seems like you maybe got on a little bit of sight fish at the end, but between talking with you and John, you seemed a little bit befuddled going into the Derby. Yeah.
It was really late in the spawn, especially down the lake. They were primarily, there was a few left, but they weren't real committed, some of them. My third day of practice, 2 days had been not too stellar. And my third day, I kind of had to make a decision if I was either going to double down on what little bit I'd found on the bottom end of the lake, or if I was going to move up the lake. And that really was probably a nail in my coffin, a lot of it. The shad spawn and all the stuff that you would, specifically that I was looking for was happening, but it was at a different end of the lake. It went down on the upper end primarily. There were a few guys down the lake that ended up doing okay in the event, and I'm sure there was more checks cashed, but top 10 wise, it was the pickings were pretty slim. I know that when I left Saturday morning, so there would have still been 50 competitors on the boat. I left at like 8:30. I stepped out on our back porch, which looked out over the lake, and you could see from the dam. I mean, you could see a lot of water. You didn't see a single boat, not a one. And that's, the end that we ended up. It's one of them deals, and it happens, and this is going to happen again. It happens a lot. And sometimes you leave an event and you're upset with yourself that you didn't cover enough water. And then sometimes you leave events that you feel like you covered too much and you should have just focused on one area and stayed put. And that will continue to happen because there's no right or wrong answer to that, 100% guaranteed every single time. But that's definitely an event that I would like to have seen the other end of the reservoir before the tournament started. Wished I would have once it was over.
So that leads me to the question that we can knock out the E as far as the educational aspect for the 3 E's of entertain, educate, and engage a BTL is how do you go about choosing what section? Because Elite Series, 2.5 days of practice, Monday, Tuesday, half of Wednesday, then it's go day on Thursday. That is not a lot of time on these big bodies of water. How do you go about choosing? How do you know, like, hey, I need to sample everything over the entire lake, or I need to stay in a particular area? Like,
I think if you're
down your process.
Well, I think if you're doing it correctly, I think it's going to depend on how practice is going. If you jump right in the middle of them on day one, or you jump in the middle of something that you think could be productive on day one, then you don't necessarily need to cover the entire. You may want to just get some stuff to add to that. Maybe find something better. But when things are just not very good at all, that's when you've got to keep expanding. And then also, I think a lot of it depends on your strengths and your style of fishing and how you want to fish. So, some places may not suit what you're looking for as far as one end or the other. So then you're going to really try to focus in on more of what looks more, pertainable to your style. That's definitely like Jason had a good tournament there, and watching that on live, he's sitting in the middle of that lily pad field, which doesn't exist at the bottom end of the lake. If it does, I never saw it. I covered a good portion of it, but he found a portion of the lake that fit his style with active fish, and that's how you're supposed to do it.
So how long do you go? Because I struggle with this. I think a lot of guys struggle with this. How long do you go before you punt on a section of the lake, or you look harder on a section of the lake? Because
well, obviously that's where I'm struggling right now. Hindsight's 20/20. It's easy to call that after you fished a tournament, even if we're talking about just fishing a weekend tournament at your local lake or team event. It would depend on your time frame. Well, how much time do you have? With us, we have a little bit a longer period than most guys do going to fish a team tournament on Saturday or Sunday and say they take off Friday or maybe half Thursday and Friday to practice, you've got to figure it out a little quicker. And you don't you don't want it nailed down to where you're like, I'm going to go to this tree and that tree and this rock pile at this time and blah, blah, blah. I mean, you just kind of want to be in an area in general that you feel like that there's some active fish that, that you can catch doing whatever it is that you want to do, and expand on that. And it's okay to expand on that on tournament day. Actually, it's really good to do it on tournament day. But, man, I feel like I'm talking in circles like Castledine. It's really a gut feeling just from experience and doing it. And like I say, that's one of the things that I've struggled with. Some of the events have been, and they haven't been the same thing. They've been different reasons. Some of them have been not covering enough water. Some of them have been covering too much water. It's back and forth. A place like Lake Murray is a good example.
Okay.
Murray is absolutely loaded with fish. If you spend more than a day of not getting bit very well, then you need to crunch down the map. You need to pick one area and go, okay, I'm gonna go in here and figure out how to catch them, because Murray is loaded right now and you should be getting bit, because there's a good bag in just about every one of those big pockets, on that lake right now. So available, and probably multiple, big bags. So place like, where did we go? That was so
Seminole.
bad. No, I was thinking Santee Cooper.
Santee.
That's a different deal.
Right.
Santee Cooper.
You got two lakes, you're hundreds of miles apart. You got a clear lake, a muddy lake, you got offshore, you got everything.
And the weights look really good, right? And they do.
Yeah.
They do look good. But there's not the population of bass there, but the population that is there is big. So it looks good at weigh-in, but on the water, it's pretty much a struggle, even for the guys that are doing really well. It's not easy to put together. They're only catching 6, 7, 8 keepers, some of them. Some of them 5, but it's not easy to put together. So therefore, that's a place that, I wish I'd have looked at a little bit more water. And I looked at quite a bit there, and I wish I'd looked at more. Yeah.
The other thing that's not really talked about, especially at the top level, is lost fish. Guys don't like to talk about lost fish. It's everyone loses fish. But I do think that there can be key moments in a season that revolve around specific fish. And I'll say you haven't really talked about it much, but you had basically a check fish on day one at Murray, where you're going, how does Brad only come in with 4 fish? But you gotten off to a good start, 29th. You salvaged it 74th at Seminole, and that fish at Murray, you lost a big one and ended up only coming in with 4 on day one, and that can change the whole trajectory of a season as well. I've talked to numerous guys that are like, man, I don't really want to focus on it because it happens to everybody, and I'm a professional and this is what I do. But man, there's certain things that happen, and that seemed to possibly be one of the fish too that kind of changed a little bit of the trajectory.
Yeah, I must have told you that story, but I honestly haven't focused on that fish very much. The fish was, I'm not saying I would have landed it, but it was 100% my fault. It was early on day 2. It wasn't early. It was probably 3 hours into the day, and I think I had one fish. I was in a hurry because I only had one fish and was pressing. And it was in the time of day when I was actually sight fishing, checking some beds that I'd marked, and I just started doing that process. And I'd gone between 2 docks where there was a bed, and while I was there, I'd pitched a drop shot back up underneath it to a pole, and bed fish wasn't there. And I had turned my trolling motor on backwards and was coming out, and it was that point where your boat starts gaining momentum, where you're moving pretty fast. And I felt, and I was like, bite. But like I said, I'm in a hurry. I figure it's a little one. I pull on it, and as I pull on it, I realize when I set the hook that it's not little, and I feel that, well, now my boat's moving away from the dock and it's around a pole. I can feel the wood on my spinning rod, and I just pulled on it too hard. I'm pulling, the boat's backing up, and it's pulling drag, and out of frustration and being in a hurry, and I just never gave it much of a chance, and it ended up breaking off pretty quick. But I don't know that if I'm not in such a hurry, maybe I'm not backing out as fast. If I'm not in such a hurry, maybe I'm not pulling on it as hard. Maybe I at least step on the trolling motor and try to stop the momentum of the boat, if that helps. I don't know. But I know 4 days later, we're at practice at Santee Cooper the first day, and I've got basically the same setup on a tree, and a 7.5, 8 pounder wraps it around a tree twice, and you land that fish, but you're not in a hurry. You don't care if it breaks off or doesn't break off. You're just like, let's just see what happens. And you land that fish. But like I said, I really hadn't focused too much on it. I do think that fish could have done quite a bit for me in that event. But how big was it? I don't know. 3 pounder? I don't think so. I think it was over 4 at least. But who knows? Maybe it was a catfish. You never know.
So what's
we
the
all fish, dude. We all lose fish. Yeah. I don't get too upset about them.
You think some of the guys that have crazy good years, like I would love to talk to, like, let's say Dakota Ebear right now.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder if, we saw him lose that fish was it at Murray?
It was.
We saw him break that fish off at Murray or lose that fish and then cast right back in and catch it. It was like, what, a 6 or 7 pound largemouth?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I wonder if these guys, when they're getting on the hot streaks, are not like their execution is next level to where, if there's 40 guys that have the opportunity to top 10 and 20 guys are losing a fish or two and they're finishing in the top 50 instead of the top 10, and guys just get on hot streaks where they're landing everything that they're supposed to land and everything that they're not supposed to land, and they have supreme confidence in it. I wonder how much that contributes to the hot streak as opposed to execution or as opposed to just decision making and where they are. How much of it is execution and fish landing that gives them the extra 10% to jump them off in the top 10 instead of top 30 or 40? Like, are they going 50, 60 bites without losing a key fish?
No. The top 10, the guys in the points landing more fish. That's basically what you're getting at.
Yeah.
Are they landing a higher percentage? I would say that, all those guys that are perennially at the top, everybody's focused on hookup land ratios, and we want that number to be as high as possible. And there's certain techniques that tend to lend to more landed fish than others, right?
Yeah.
But I think that all you can do is control the variables that you have control of, and then go from there. Do I think that some of them get lucky? I think they create their own luck on that situation. Checking your hooks, retying, using the correct hooks, using the correct tackle, using the correct rod. There's a lot goes into landing a fish. It's more than just, luck.
All right. Let's do hook to land ratio, lowest to highest as far as baits. Okay. You good with that? Let's make a list here because I don't think I've ever done this before, and I'm curious. So, like the lowest hook to land ratio, let's just do let's not do crazy outlandish stuff. Let's do standard tournament baits that are likely to be used in an event where you're like, they come off on this and it doesn't bother you, as opposed to the highest. So Start with the lowest. You go first. I got one in mind.
Well, depending on what type of cover you're fishing, a frog can be very frustrating. Now, I don't know if that's hook to land ratio or if that's bite to land ratio. Are we going to change this? Bite?
What's the difference?
Well, you actually hook up. You don't just get a blow up.
What do you want to do? Hook to land or bite to
land?
I
don't know, but a frog to me can be iffy at times.
All right. I'm going to go swim bait. This is lowest to highest. How many times, like we've seen how many times have we seen guys just hook up on that swim bait and it comes off?
Yeah. Are we considering the glide in that?
That's what we're talking about. A big swim bait, glide bait.
Yeah, it would actually be probably a lower percentage than the frog for sure.
Okay, so swim bait, glide, then frog.
Mm-hmm.
The one
because they just have so much leverage. The dang bait weighs so much, man. They've got so much leverage on you.
Is a trap still up there? It used to be notoriously be. I remember covering all these events where guys were like, "Well, dude, if you hook 10 on a trap, you're gonna have 3 of them jump off."
Mm-hmm.
Would you still put a trap up there? When was the last time that a trap played in a major event?
Any crankbait, but a trap's just so heavy. Same thing. They've got that leverage. I'm with you. Traps get pulled out. When you hear guys talking about traps nowadays, you hear guys talking about traps when fishing's really tough. That's when you hear about traps, places that it's really hard to get a bite.
Mark Edwards, flutter spoon, great. That might be the very top. The flutter spoon.
Yeah.
That's probably right up there.
Yeah, it is.
I'm going to say a fluke too.
Dude, I've always fought the fluke.
I
I've always
hate the
fought it.
fluke.
I've always fought it. But, I know guys that fish it a lot, and they like their hookup land ratio.
They must be doing something different than what I'm doing, because I will load up, get a crank or two in, and the thing's gone.
Yeah, I mean, are you talking about spinning a rod? I mean, a lot of the guys throw it on spinning a rod.
Top landing ratios, like where you get a bite to land ratio, then flipping.
For me, it's always been high. Anything single hook has been pretty high.
Okay. Spinner bait, flipping, basically single hook that you can drive the hook in the fish.
Chatterbait.
Short list. See, there's a lot of guys who lose them on chatterbaits, though. It's weird. Have you not noticed that the chatterbait is either one or the other? Guys lose a lot on a chatterbait. Other guys don't lose any on chatterbait. Is that an equipment thing?
I don't know. I know that they push it a lot, after they kind of get tired of it, but a lot of times they choke that thing too. I don't feel like I lose any more on a chatterbait than I lose on a spinnerbait. I mean, I feel like they're somewhat close.
Game plan for the rest of the year, Bradley.
We've got Sabine coming up. I'm excited to go down there. I've never seen it. It's an extremely tough place after doing a bunch of research and getting ready for it. 10 pounds is catching them. So a 2-pound average. So a 2-pounder is a really good fish. 2.5-pounder is a phenomenal fish. And then a 3-pounder is you're doing something, and you're not going to have very many of those bites if you're fortunate enough to get one or two. It looks like a day one place. It tends to be the ones that, what's out there is low hanging fruit, but it's just hard to find because there's 200 miles of waterway there to look at. But the first day is pretty critical if you're going to make a great week out of it.
And then 3 left, all 3 up north. I mean, you have to look forward to St. Clair and Champlain at least. I mean, those.
I'm looking forward to all 3 of them. I mean, they're some of the best smallmouth fisheries in the country. As bad as my year's been, I mean, I never would have thought that smallmouth would be what I was looking forward to. But at this point, I have to look forward to something. So that's it. It's not like I haven't spent quite a bit of time up there. I have. I enjoy it. I don't like it as much as you do, but I do enjoy it.
Are there any of these last 4 winning your ends? I know they have a couple of those on the Elite Series.
Maybe the last one. Maybe
the last one.
Maybe I don't know. I don't know.
The last one's on the St. Lawrence, August 24th to 27th.
Yeah, I got a feeling somebody from Canada probably wins that. Just a guess.
Hell, yeah. There's 4 of them.
Yeah, and
one of them's a defending classic champ. 2 of them are the best 2 on the river, and the other one's the defending champ there.
Yeah.
No, that was Shakurat. Shakurat, he's kind of Canadian.
Like I said,
Coop.
Yeah, Coop. He's having a good year. But yeah, and our house has been a little somber for sure.
Are you having fun? Like, are there moments of it where it's fun? Has it been an emotional struggle?
It hadn't been too much fun. I mean, it hadn't been bad, but there hasn't been much fun as catching them, Not catching them is not fun. No. But man, I've got a good outlook about it. We've still got some events left. And like I said, I'm looking forward to the Sabine for sure.
You still have a lot to fish for too, because you're looking at a 2-year average. You're guaranteed 2 years in the Elite Series.
Mm-hmm. I think my average is going to be a little different too, because the way they changed the rules. So mine's going to go off of some of my past.
Really?
Was there, for 6 years. So it's going to come into, and that average is much better than where I'm doing right now.
Okay. I did not realize that. That's good.
Yeah. So I've got a little bit more, but yeah, I'm not focused on that right now. I'm just focused on what all I've got to do to do better. And I think I've kind of penciled down some of that stuff of what I'm lacking. So we'll see how it goes from here. I'm not expecting a dramatic turnaround, but it's going to take a little bit of time. But I think I'm going to get it turned around. I do.
I still like you guys' videos. You're doing a good job. You have a cameraman following you around this year, and I like that you put out the practice videos. And you guys have been very raw and real when it comes down to how it goes down on the Elite Series.
Yeah, as far as YouTube goes, and anything in the media, really. I'll be honest with you about this, dude. Like, those are hard videos to make whenever you're doing so bad. And I made a promise to myself that no matter what happened, good or bad or ugly, I was going to show it. And I didn't realize I was going to have to make this much bad at early in the year, but I still want to show it because it's the reality of what's going on. And I feel like that, primarily what we see on social media and YouTube and media today is all the great, all the good, and guys kind of tend to shy away from anything else. And I think it's good to show that, because really, if you look at the channels that are doing well right now, that do the best of tournament anglers, it's the guys that stay on top all the time. And it makes my channel a little different right now. So we're going through some struggles. And like I say, they are extremely hard to make. But once I'm done with them and I actually give myself a day or two to watch them before they go live, they're pretty good they're pretty good videos. They really are. And they show the reality of what's going on, especially for a guy that's struggling. And there's a bunch of us, it's not just one or two guys. So, it'll make the good times better. It always has before. The struggles have made the good times more enjoyable, but I got to get this thing turned around.
I hear you. Well, you got a bunch of supporters over here on BTL and on your channel for sure that appreciate that you're showing it all, that you haven't mailed it in when it comes to posting and showing that. Cause I know in the opens how difficult that can be to just be like, what the hell? Like, I don't want any part of this out there.
Yeah. Yeah. I think we all feel that way. I think that's human nature. And then, you look for I think it's human nature to look for excuses. And dude, honestly, I've done some serious soul searching on this deal, and it's nobody's fault but my own, and I know where my shortcomings are. And like I say, I expect to get them righted.
The hardest thing for me in this, and I have nowhere near the success that you have had or been doing it nearly as long as you have, or at the level that you have, is though people are like, just go out and fish, just let it happen, focus on your strengths. But it's human nature to push harder, to focus on the things. And when I've been fishing good and know I'm fishing good, it does seem to flow really easy. And the more I seem to press and the more I seem to try to think about it and, quote, make the right decisions, the harder it seems to get. It's like a weird flip-flop. You have to, in my mind, I've always had to like trick my mind into not caring because I care so much. Does that make any sense to you?
Yeah, but I don't know about the not caring part, but I do know what you're saying. You definitely get to where you put more pressure on yourself, and then it gets to a point where it's a negative impact on you. And I'm definitely doing some of that. There's a lot to this. I mean, that's why it's not easy to figure out what Wheeler is Wheeler, or why Van Dam was Van Dam in his prime. There's a lot to this. It's not just one or two things. Pressure is part of it, yes.
Yeah.
But those guys are putting pressure on themselves too to perform, dude, to stay at the top. I mean, it's not easy to go out and freak show that group of guys that Wheeler just freak showed.
But do you not think that in this sport, it's just like everyone else going, well, why am I not scoring like Michael Jordan scored? Or why am I not putting pucks in the net like Wayne Gretzky did? Is there not just a couple savants in every level, whether it's chess, basketball, hockey, or football? You can't compare or try to be that just because they're different mentally, whether they started with you know what I mean?
Well, there's definitely something to momentum. Is that what you're getting at? Because I don't really.
No, I just meant
you used a lot of big words in that last.
I'm just saying, like, you can't try to compare yourself to like statistically the best that have ever done it.
Mm-hmm.
But that's what you said, where you're just sort of like, well, Wheeler and those guys. But
no, I'm just using them as examples because you're saying, you're talking about pressure, and I'm saying that everybody has pressure. Everybody.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Everybody. It's not that they're just ho hum going out there and just woke up this morning and I'm better than everybody else. That's not how it's working. Now, there's definitely momentum that carries. That definitely happens. But there's a lot of work and stuff going on behind the scenes that's giving them an edge. Listen, any tournament I've ever won or done really well in, there are little clues and little tidbits that I understand that everyone else around me is not understanding.
All right, Florida, what was that little tidbit? I mean, you blew everyone away there, dude, in that FLW tour event.
Dude, you're talking about a long time ago.
I know, but you know those things that sticks out in your
I
mind.
understood
You know every freaking flip that you made.
I understood that I've had a spot that had fish coming and going, and I didn't leave it no matter what. And there was a couple times there in day 2, like 11 o'clock or so, I didn't have a fish and I didn't leave because I felt like that was
The deal.
and it was. But
Lanier.
definitely understood what was going on underneath those marinas when no one else was using them. Also had a bait figured out to go on top of that no one else was using, that I could follow behind other people and catch fish. Man, I don't think about tournaments like that so much as I think about tournaments like when we were at Mississippi last year at the Open. And
Ross Barnett.
yeah.
Oh, you
And,
made great adjustments there.
right. We all kind of had an average first day. And the second day of the tournament, I went to a place that I'd had a bite in practice, a big bite. It was the biggest bite I'd had since I've been there, but it's the only bite I had. I didn't go the first day of the tournament. It was just around the corner from where I was fishing. But the primary area where I was fishing had a lot of people. And by the end of day 1, start of day 2, it was obvious that it was burned out. So I go over there, figuring there's going to be a lot of boats there too, and there's not. It's a totally different looking vegetation. It was more of the gator mat stuff. It didn't have anything vertical. It was just mat stuff that, you would look at and think, well, I'm going to punch that, frog that, blah, blah, blah. That's what it looks like on the surface. Well, I had remembered, well, this is how this came together. So this is what I'm talking about. This is how the light bulb goes off. I go in this area. There's nobody in there. It's a pocket that's probably a couple of football fields. That's about how big it is. And it's got these isolated gator mats, right? And there's a little ditch that kind of winds and runs through there in between them. Well, like I said, it looks like something that you would frog, flip, pitch in the middle of, punch, or frog over the top of. And I think that my one bite that I had in practice, the best fish that I saw, I didn't stick it. It was frog bite. And it was just right after it had come off the edge of the gator vine. The big one comes up and eats it. Okay. Fast forward to day 2 of the tournament. I'm in there. And I think I was punching at first and I was doing some stuff, and I picked up a BFE and I flipped over to the edge because it had a light weight on it, or lighter. It wasn't a punching weight. And I flipped over to the corner of it. And as soon as it went down, I think I moved it like once or twice, and it bit and moved off. And it was a big one. That one bite, I realized, I turned around and I was within 20 yards of where that other big bite had come in practice. And I realized not only what they were doing, I realized what they were doing with that one bite. I realized why everyone had missed them and why no one was catching them with that one bite. And I realized why no one was in there with that one bite. They missed them. What they were doing was spawning. They didn't want up underneath that mat. They wanted the sunshine, and they really wanted on the south side. So, like, if you imagine like a north bank, they wanted that southern sun. So all those mats in there was a south side to every one of them. They wanted on the south side of the mat, preferably. I'm not saying that there wasn't a few on the north here and there. There was, and you needed to check it. And these mats weren't much bigger than a bass boat. Each one of them was, different size, but they weren't real big. But they wanted next to the mat, not in it. They wanted a foot or two, just like what they'd bump up against a tree to spawn. Everyone had missed them because, like I said, when you come in there, they're throwing directly to the cover every single time. The fish weren't directly in the cover. They were right next to the cover. And so they were missing those fish. Well, once I figured that out, I was like, well, I'm going to quit dragging because I can't cover enough water. And I picked up a swim jig, and then I just started paralleling those south sides of those grass mats. And it was every single time. Don't, bite. And it was a really good day. And, if I'd had enough to make it to the third day, I already knew what I was going to do. I had another area, had another grass mats just like that in it that I hadn't been to. That probably had spawners on it, and I could probably swim jig them, but the area that I already caught them in swim jigging, I was just going to come back and flip and drag real slow because they're spawning. They're not all eating the moving bait, just some of them, right? The higher potential ones. There was a bunch there that I probably wasn't catching, that if I'd have come back and then dragged really slow around the south side of those mats, I could have caught them. So like I said, when you figure something out, generally when you catch them pretty good, you're understanding things that everyone else around you is not.
You're putting 2 or 3 little things together that all make sense, and it creates a picture in your head that you're then able to execute.
Yeah, and you're
when
not wrong. And you're not
struggling-
wrong. It's not like whenever you guess and you're like, "Oh, I think I know what's going on," and then you go down this road and it's a rabbit that you follow down a hole that doesn't exist. It's really what's happening.
Yeah.
And when you get that figured out, that's generally when you do well. And look, man, that's the game. That's the game that you're after every time you go fishing. Is that if you can put together that puzzle, whatever that takes, you know, pressure, no pressure, convincing yourself that this tournament doesn't matter, whatever you know, you said that you do. It's to allow your brain to focus on that puzzle. And once you can start putting some of those pieces together, other than just I got a bite here and a bite there, not really understanding the reasons of where, when, and why, you know.
Is that the deal where you hear him say, you know, 1 bite is just a bite, 2 bites is interesting, 3 bites is a pattern?
Say it again.
Same, like 1 bite gets your attention, 2 bites is interesting, 3 bites is a pattern.
Oh yeah.
If you get it all in the same thing, and you need to figure out what all those things were in common with those bites. But I find it interesting, dude. You had fished through that area, you'd gotten bites, you'd had an average day 1, but you put all those pieces of the puzzle together on day 2 in tournament competition
With one bite. One
with
bite.
one
It only
bite.
takes one bite to get enough clues. And that's what's cool about our sport. You know, if you really paying attention and you can get clued in that way, then it only takes 1 bite. It doesn't take 3. It takes 1 to go,
What else you got? Oh, what is your hat status? I know that you're a big fan of selling hats, so we got to know what the BFE hat status
Well, I
is.
sold out. You know, I didn't have them forever. And forever and ever and ever. I sold out. But I do have hats again. I just got them, actually. BFE hats. Bradley
Are they on the
Hallman.
website?
Yep, BradleyHallman.com. You can also go to Lucky Lures, got them as well, if you're in Oklahoma City Metro.
I saw Michael on the water yesterday at an undisclosed fishery.
What is that about? I noticed the same thing, and I was like, where is he? So you're
There's
not.
an
I was just about to
undisclosed
ask
fishery.
you that question.
We were
Golly.
stroking the
There's too many Lake X's.
crappie. Might be a new Lake X. Oh, there it is right there. Here, let's
I saw
share
his
the
post that
screen.
they caught like 23 pounds.
He was idling out, and we were out there crappie fishing. We said, Strands. He came over. He's like, yeah, we're freaking crushing them. I'm like, yeah, we're crushing the crappie. We had never been there. He said it's only his. He's not a local at that pond. He'd been there before, but yeah, it was freaking good. And then he posted, he had 23 and a half. And I was like, did you see the crappie post I had? We had 48.
Mm-hmm.
It's in
I
Oklahoma.
I didn't see the post.
It's in Oklahoma.
Okay.
There it is right there. The
Yeah.
Bradley Hallman, the BFE leather
Yeah.
patch hat.
Yeah. Yeah, they're there. And I've got them now. So
And then also the trucker hat.
Yeah.
Drunkwood's the only one that I've seen with the trucker hat. All right, Bradley. What else you got anything else coming up before you got the Sabine is the first week of
I'm leaving
got
like Thursday or Friday, Saturday, something.
All right.
Soon.
All right. Well, we'll be watching, following, and rooting for you.
Well, I appreciate all the support greatly. It's been
You're only 3 days away or 4 days away from glory.
that's the
It's a nice thing about fishing.
It is, man. You can erase some demons really quickly.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'll let you get back to it. Thank you for jumping on BTL on a Monday.
All right, Bubba. See you, Bubba.
All right. See ya. All right. That was Bradley Hallman, and much appreciate him coming on BTL today, talking a little bit about what's going down. Really cool, in depth. There's a lot of information there in that breakdown that he did on how he found them on day 2 there that you can apply to your fishery and your body of water as far as taking clues, putting it together, and learning from it. We're going to take our final break of the show. When we come back, wrap things up. Once again, talk a little bit about what we have going on the rest of the week and a couple of the BTL giveaways that we'll have with the new Denali Novus reels and the X Zone Stealth Invaders BTL on a Monday. We'll be back right after this.
Having confidence in your tackle while on the water is one of the main things to success, in my opinion. In the last couple of years with Denali, I've had just that. From anything from spinning rods, casting rods, tungsten products, even now to casting and spinning reels, I have the confidence to go out there and get the job done and know that all my equipment is going to handle it and do it just the way I want it. The thing about Denali is you've got great quality products at a great price point, so make sure you check them out.
Have you considered purchasing new electronics for your rig? The type of mounts you choose to protect your investment should be part of the decision-making process. No matter if you prefer 1, 2, or 3 graphs up front, Beatdown Outdoors has a solution for you. Adjustable, versatile, rigid, and made in the USA. What's your ultimate electronic setup? Check out the full selection of Beatdown Outdoors products by visiting beatdownoutdoors.com.
Are you looking to install your own fishing electronics? The solution is the Bass Tank Power Harness. It takes the guesswork out of installation. No more voltage issues or interference. Designed by an engineer so that you can get professional results right there in your own garage. Installation done right with the help of the Bass Tank Power Harness. You can feel confident knowing that your installation was done right. The Bass Tank Power Harness. Give us a call or order yours today at thebasstank.com.
Get the best patterns backed by tournament data. Start by finding the best 10% of your lake. Know exactly what to look for and what to throw. After that, just put them in the boat. Try the Deep Dive app today.
Look at that beast right there.
The great thing about the new Sensation soft plastics from Big Bite Baits, heavily scented, super soft, buoyant, comes in 7 great new shapes. I've got a couple of them of my signature series, the cliffhanger worm and the ramtail craw. Great for a flipping jig, football jig, swim jig, all that. Several other great shapes. Really excited about it. We've worked over the last year, catches fish all over the country, and I think it's going to catch fish for people everywhere you try it.
The Spro Little John crankbait has been around for almost 15 years, and it is one of my go-to crankbaits whenever I need a fish in the boat, so you can never have enough new colors. That's why Spro's coming out with a handful of new colors, including Pearl Shad, which has this bleached out white look, but it's got this pearlescent, really pretty. We've got Copper Shad, which looks amazing in the water. It's got that purple flake on the back, really pops in the water. And then if you want some real pop, we've got Sparkle Shad, nothing but sparkles all over this thing. And then last but not least, we've got the matte Sexy Shad, just a really different looking color for a crankbait. So you want to give them a little different look, that matte Sexy Shad is definitely the one to go with. All these colors are available in the original Little John and the MD.
All right, welcome back. Wrapping things up here on a BTL on a Monday. Like I said, all sorts of new things. Tomorrow, Brian New will be on the show. He bounced back nicely. He had a really poor start to the year, and his motto is "Don't suck," and he hasn't sucked the last couple of events. So we'll talk about him getting the train back on the track. I also want to talk to him and dive into his style of fishing. He's fast. He's very fast. He's hit a lot of spots a day at 1,000,000 miles an hour. And I want to talk to him about effective speed, because I remember when KVD was back in the day and he was doing all of it. It talked about how they ruined so many anglers who tried to fish fast like Kevin, but they only fished fast because they saw Kevin fast, and they didn't know how to fish fast effectively. Brian New, Thrift, Van Dam, all those guys, they've learned how to fish fast effectively. So we'll talk to Brian New about that. And then an in-depth dive into the Bassmaster Open EQ on Wheeler. I finished 118th out of 230 or something like that in that. So about a middle of the field finish, but had some interesting stuff go down in that event, as we have had in the past. Ben Milliken will be on. And no, if you see anything on social media, anything that's not clickbait, and we'll talk about that on Wednesday. Also, Wednesday, we'll give away some stealth invaders from X-Zone, especially if you're going up north. Smallmouth fishing. They look really awesome. So, all right. Want to give a big shout out to Bradley Hallman for coming on to talk about his season and a number of other things on today's show. Other than that, I think that's all we got. Tomorrow, Brian New on a Tuesday. We'll see everybody then. Later.